And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my green friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
And today we will be talking about Jon Chu's 2024 release, Wicked, Part 1. I've been very anxious to talk about this film with you because it's obviously getting glowing reviews. And I'm not sure whether or not this will come as a surprise, but this film is not very good.
I'm not surprised.
There's a lot wrong with it, and it's not the music or Ariana Grande. I think Ariana Grande does very good. She brings a lot of personality to this movie. And I will say, I think Glenda and Elphaba's duets were probably my favorite musical sections. Especially with the editing and the way they kind of interacted with each other. I was just thinking, man, I wish the rest of the film had this kind of personality. And then I would also think, throughout the entire film, man, this film wants to be a Paul King film so bad.
No.
And then I couldn't get it out of my head. Man, how good would this movie have been if it was a Paul King movie?
No way. Paul King is the Wonka and Paddington guy?
Yeah.
No way. This movie doesn't have that type of charm.
You're right, it's missing it big time. And I think Paul King could have helped with the flatness that we see, the sort of desaturated colors. I guess it seems to be kind of in the inverse of what we see in the original Wizard of Oz, which I'm not sure if we needed the oversaturated kind of hand coloring. It's not the prettiest movie, but it's not the ugliest movie. That's okay. But the flatness in characters, I think, is a fundamental problem. This film is deeply missing any kind of characterization, motivation, and ultimately any vision. I couldn't get off this thought of, why does Elphaba think that she can identify with these animals that are literally being oppressed, that are literally being stripped of their voice, made into, I guess, pets by the end of it all? She was bullied. She's green. She got kind of banished from her family to some degree. It looks like she still knows her dad. I'm not sure what the dynamic is there. She got bullied, but we're really going to compare that to animals losing their humanity, ultimately. Intellect isn't just reserved for humans in this world. I guess that's kind of a fundamental problem I have with this, because I feel like that kind of encompasses the whole beat-to-beat nature and where we land with Defying Gravity, which was a train wreck of a climax, I think. So I'm very confused why the reviews are so insanely high. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like there's this kind of inside joke type thing I'm just not clicking with. But it does look like the man who made Step Up 2 and 3 is going to receive some Academy Awards. But none of us are here for what I have to say. I'm very curious how you feel about Wicked. You're the only person in the world I know who likes the James Franco Oz movie, whatever that was called.
Oz the Powerful, I think? I don't know.
Something like that. You're the only person who remembers.
You know, I didn't expect to get so emotional during this film, and I bet that's what people are really grabbing onto, because there were a lot of moments that I was in my feelings, but there were definitely two big ones where I actually was crying, I was tearing up. This was a very emotional film, and while Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were doing their press for this film, there's a lot of jokes that they were crying, they were very emotional, and it's kind of funny, but it's very true. They were very emotional talking about this film because it's a very emotional film. And as we know, that's one of the most powerful things a film can be to somebody watching it. But emotion is also tricky. It can play into manipulation. Of course, you want to play with the audience to some degree. You have to make them feel a certain way. That's what the score is for. That's what the visuals are for. But you can't let it get into an over manipulation, so to say. But I also think manipulation in film can be a bit subjective. We each have those triggers in watching a film that make us feel a certain way. That's why I can't go, even now, I can't even mention Guardians of the Galaxy 3 without wanting to tear up because, oh my gosh, just the animal cruelty in that film, everything Rocket goes through. I mean, it's so powerful and it affects me so much that's one of my triggers. Dog films, of course, that's one of those triggers for me too. So this movie worked for me in an emotional way. I found this to be very effective in getting me to feel something for the characters. Not only Elphaba for not belonging, not fitting in, but Glinda, especially towards the beginning of the film. And that's when I knew Ariana Grande was going to kill it, because the introduction of the film where she's there with the Munchkin Land people and they're all singing that the witch is dead, she has this like reservations, this emotion behind her that everything's not quite as it seems. And she's about to tell the story, but she's not quite okay with how things ended. So there's a lot of character to her. And I will agree with you a little bit that there was characterization missing, because there seems to be a lot of reading in between the lines. And maybe that's one thing people are enjoying about this film too, because Wicked is such a loved musical. I don't know if it's the most popular one, but it's definitely loved. Like, the people who love Wicked love Wicked.
It's like the Dark Souls of movies.
Exactly. So there's maybe some fun in there for them to have this world. But along with Elphaba and Glinda, I was here for the animals. And I'm excited for what we're going to do with this story that's about to unfold. You asked why we think Elphaba can even relate to these animals, and I didn't quite take it that way. I didn't quite see it that way.
Yeah, her problem is so trivial compared to theirs. Their voice is literally being snatched out of their soul.
Yeah, and I didn't quite see it that way. I saw it as she was an outcast, so who brought her up? Who made her this woman she is now? Because she has these moments where she's really powerful. She's trying to be, at least, a strong, powerful woman that doesn't give a fuck and is going to be herself. Who raised her to do that? And it was that bear. So I took it as she has this connection to one of those animals, and she can't stand that that's happening to someone who has literally brought her up.
That's fair.
But we don't get enough of that to make that connection. But it's one of those things that I feel like you kind of have to read in between the lines to get.
But at the same time, the school, for example, has had many animal professors that have touched many human lives, right? Presumably. There was a glimpse of like some mural that was there before, I think, the wizard's mural, or the dean of the school was there.
Yeah.
Obviously acting as a little bit of foreshadow after everything is said and done. And you're right, we see so little of Elphaba with her bear mother that what differentiates her relationship with animals than anyone else.
Right, because I would have loved to see a flashback with their interaction, to get that this isn't a professor or an animal that she met that influenced her. This is her literal guardian, her mother that brought her up. I need to see that to get that. This is why this means more to her than it does Glinda or, whomever.
And identifying and developing that relationship could have helped justify maybe the part 1, part 2 thing. Because if we would have spent, 45 minutes, an hour with her being raised by a bear or what have you, could help align that a little better. But again, animals are so integral to the society, to the school specifically. I'm just not sure or convinced what differentiates Elphaba giving a shit more than anyone else. Giving a shit more or less, I should say. Because that's not necessarily implied. Especially when we see Elphaba still kind of have a relationship with her dad. Like, there's kind of mixed messaging there of I thought you didn't know your dad. I thought he kind of gave you up kind of thing and you were in like a foster home, but now you're still kind of connected with him because of Nesseros. Like you're still caring for your little sister. It's like, okay. It just placed my mind in a place like it's a little extreme maybe. I mean, maybe not, but you know, you're bullied in school, you don't have any friends, you're an outcast, you have something wrong with you, I guess, you know, something not normal. At least you're green, you're kind of witchy, but they go to witch school, so I don't know why that's kind of a reason to outcast anyone. But okay, you're green, so you have this weird physical deformation, right?
Dang.
I mean, that's fine.
Skin color is a deformation.
That's like someone, you know, I don't know, in real life who was born without an arm, or a Down syndrome person trying to identify with the victims of the Holocaust. You know, they're not quite on the same level, right? But I guess her relationship with her bear mother, I guess maybe the Down syndrome person has a Jewish mom. And so now she can identify, she's a girl, I guess, she can identify with the Holocaust a little more. It's a little stupid.
But she's not trying to identify with the animals. She's trying to stand up for them because they are about to lose their voice. So somebody needs to give a damn.
Why aren't the animals more involved?
What animals?
The ones that can still stand up for themselves.
Which ones? We didn't see enough of them in the film.
I know, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a massive problem. What animals am I supposed to even care about? Right? Peter Dinklage, who is a terrible voice actor, I will say, in his little secret society of animals, like, why do I give a shit? Right? Of course, these sentient things, these very intelligent things that they're teaching at a college, hopefully you're smart if you're teaching at a college, we should protect these individuals, but that reason to care is not intrinsic to the story itself. That is bad manipulation. Speaking of manipulation, how about you actually try to humanize these animals, because that's obviously the point.
But we don't spend enough time with these animals to know whether they're humanized like that or not. There's not enough time given to the animals. There's obviously a larger narrative out there. And this is just a part one. A long, very long part one. So hopefully there's a connection somewhere else.
You don't feel like it'll be too little too late? This is kind of the time to set up, you know, we're going to fucking kill those guys who were taking out the animals kind of thing.
I don't know, because one of the most powerful moments for me that I was definitely tearing up was when she gave the monkeys the wings.
that was pretty crazy.
That was rough. That was crazy.
But I will say, it wasn't graphic enough as far as...
Are you kidding me?
The literal transformation was pretty graphic, but the response from Elphaba and the wizard and stuff, I feel like it just wasn't matching up. Like, I feel like Elphaba, at the very least, and maybe even Michelle Yeoh, responded in a little bit more of a disgusted way. But I don't know. I feel like it was a little underbaked. Like a lot of the performances. I think the performances in this are kind of not good. Except Ariana Grande. I will say I'm a big fan of Ariana Grande in this film.
Yeah, and I don't totally disagree with you, because that is the moment where the song Defying Gravity is supposed to be that climax. This is where she's supposed to change, you know, that's her first verse, something has changed within me, and that's supposed to be like this gut-wrenching feeling after seeing her do that to the monkeys.
I will say it was very cool when I think Elphaba walked out into the lobby area where the monkeys are at, and then they've all changed or whatever, or she could hear them or something like that.
Oh,
I was
my
like,
gosh.
that was pretty good.
That made my stomach hurl. But it didn't have that cinematic oomph, that cinematic high that I was supposed to get on at that moment that I was looking for. And I don't know what was missing, because it's a powerful moment. It's a powerful song. But you're telling me that if the performances don't sell it, it's done. Because that's what it felt like was the only thing that didn't give the moment the 100% max moment the audience needed. It didn't leave me in tears, with something like Wonka, leaving me in tears the last song. The movie has ended. The credits are rolling and my tears are still rolling.
Music to my ears. Thank you, Paul King.
Thank you, Paul King. And not to say that it was a bad moment and it was shit or anything like that, but it was missing that specialness that a movie has.
It was totally underbaked and drawn out.
What's a long song?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I could tell you the fundamental reason why you didn't feel anything, because there was just no setup. Why do we care?
We care because we care about the animals. We care because we care about Elphaba. You said earlier this film lacks motivation. And that's something I struggled with thinking about this film, not gonna lie. One of Elphaba's greatest motivation is to feel like she belongs. She doesn't want to be an outsider. And as cool as she thinks she is, we know that because she wants to ask the wizard to make her not green. And I don't know if it's just me, but feeling like an outsider is one of the least relatable things I can watch in a film. Probably because I think everyone is an outsider. No one is different from feeling that. So it's like, okay, everyone's different. Let's focus on the real shit,
Like taking the voices of animals?
Like taking the voices of animals, yes. So I struggled with that a little bit. Of course, everyone wants to feel like they belong to something. Evolutionarily, we don't want to be left out, right? We won't survive if we're left out of a pack. So we want to belong to some sense. But again, this is modern society. We belong. So there's something a little silly to me about that concept of not belonging. And, being Christmas time, we recently watched the Rudolph film, which is on point, a story about being an outcast, being different.
It's way more brutal than Wicked.
Yes, especially when Claudius, whatever his name is, Yukon Cornelius. That guy. Especially when he falls off the cliff. Oh my god, I didn't even remember that was in there. But it still seemed a little silly to me. And then we also have this sort of high school drama going on here that I quite enjoyed. That's probably my favorite part of the film. This sneak peek into an actual love triangle that we're going to see hopefully in part 2. Hopefully that's something.
Wasn't
right?
mean enough.
Well, it's not that it wasn't mean enough. Nothing happened yet. No one found out anything yet. Which was also another silly thing that I thought was funny. That Elphaba didn't want a relationship with this guy because she's different and doesn't know if she deserves it or whatever she was feeling at the time. But she didn't think, this is my best friend's guy. It's no go. She didn't think that, which was funny. Not a big deal.
I mean, it's kind of a mark of character that she's only thinking of herself.
Yeah.
So.
But again, nothing happened, so.
Sure, but is she any different than the people who reject her in society in that sense? I'm not here for Elphaba. She's lame. Her character's lame. The performance is lame.
I just wanted more. Not more length.
Oh, God, no.
I wanted more world texture to who these people are. And I guess that's what you mean by characterization, right? Who are you? What do you want?
Why do I care about you?
Why do I care about you? And not just play with that manipulation. Because, I mean, that's what got me. You show me this goat professor that's losing his voice. Oh my God, my heart tears in two. You show me this little cub that's about to get got. I don't know what was going to happen to this lion in that classroom before they were able to take him away. But I guess I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that this is going to be established in part 2.
I want you to tell me what necessitates a part 1 and part 2. Why didn't we get that characterization and motivation of, at the very least, why we should care? about these animals. Because I feel like the wicked superfans were probably burned the most as far as getting this kind of cinematic justification of, hey, we're art too. Because I think even the superfan would have a hard time justifying the necessity of dragging out any form of setup. It kind of reminds me of Dune Part 1, where basically nothing really happens.
Yeah. Except we see the world, at least, in Dune. We don't get to see a lot of the world here.
Yeah, why is this Oz? Like, what is Oz about this? I don't really...
Mm-hmm. And I'm left a little torn because watching this film really makes me want to read the book. Which I didn't really think about until now, having this conversation with you, that's really not a great thing for the film to not give me enough that it makes me want to go to the original source material. Which might be something the Wicked fans are feeling. They've either read the book, and I've heard a lot of great things about the book, that it's very crazy and disturbing and awesome. And you know, like any great book you read, you want the film to give it justice. Or the Wicked fans of the Broadway show, which is not as long as this, right? I'm not sure how long the play is, but I've heard that the film is a lot longer. But I'm not sure if that's taken part 1 and part 2 into account. But wanting to see a play they love so much being stretched out.
Yeah, the play is apparently 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that includes a 15-minute intermission.
Oh, okay. So it's as long as this movie, basically. I feel you that it's missing something regarding the animal narrative. Because now you're bringing this political tone to your film that you need to do something with, that you haven't established very well. Besides you relying on the emotion of the audience that they give a shit about animals, and if animals are losing their voices, you're going to make them care.
Yeah, it's kind of low-hanging fruit to hit the feels.
Mm-hmm. And it hits the feels. That's what I was saying in the beginning of this. That sort of manipulation can be subjective at times because...
So are you telling me this is just another dog movie?
Honestly, I think this is another dog movie mixed with a chick flick. In the most crude sense. But yes, we have two friends that are, I'm guessing, about to fight for the same man. Something's gonna happen there, right? We've built that, I don't want to say tension because there's not any tension yet, but we've built that potential for the tension.
With one weird get-together between Fiyero and Elphaba, she's in some sort of love. And we have another instance of her just identifying herself and him right away. I can maybe kind of start to see the toxic nature of Elphaba in that she thinks the world revolves around her.
Right, because you gotta remember at the end of the day, she's not the good witch.
And maybe that's kind of part of the narrative that I'm just not seeing yet. In that Glenda learns to kind of put herself aside.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the irony, right? She's the popular hot girl. Self-centered, the naturally talented, even though she's not talented.
Yeah, she doesn't have the magic.
It doesn't seem like anyone has the magic except Elphaba and the professor girl, Michelle Yeoh's character.
And she barely has it.
Well, she could change the weather. That's pretty crazy.
She says she can change the weather.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sure looked like she changed the weather to me.
But then she says she can't do like half the magic in the book, and she learned, and it took her forever to learn a little bit of the language that Elphaba was speaking in the book.
Sure, and maybe that starts to play up because she shares a lot in common with Glenda as far as being the self-centered minded person. She all of a sudden kind of has this supply of power, and that only kind of feeds the worst in her. Maybe that's where we're kind of headed in that way, because she is, like you said, the wicked witch. Because the whole time I was just thinking for the whole movie, especially when we were at the school, that Bach would be perfect with Elphaba. They're both trying to find themselves and prove themselves, that they're not just munchkins or this Cinderella-esque character person shoved into a broom closet. Because Elphaba and Fiyero forming a rapid connection is pretty stupid.
You must have never had love at first sight.
Yeah, unless there's more to come out of it. I guess maybe there is going to be some tension between the three. Love at first sight, Elphaba's not a romantic, right?
We don't know what Elphaba is.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's a good point. We don't know anything about Elphaba. That's kind of the central character of the film, and one of the central pieces of storytelling we're missing. Are they trying to play this mysterious game? Why is it designed in such a way to almost hide Elphaba's motivation?
Well, part of the shtick is that Elphaba has a facade, right? And that Glenda is the only one that can see past it. Because during the scene where she's doing that weird interpreted dance and Fiyero sees her, he's amazed that she has so much confidence to just be out there and put herself out there. And Glenda's like, no, don't let her fool you. She's as insecure as the rest of us. She's not who she seems to be. So there's something there that we don't really know her true character, but then she does have these character defining moments that we should know her character, so it is a little weird. But now as I say this, some of these character defining moments that I'm speaking of are the moments where she's taking responsibility for her sister or sticking up for her sister, loving her, protecting her. But we didn't really see that interaction between them when they were younger. Is it sincere? Does she actually care for her sister? Or she's just forced to take care of her sister because her dad is forcing her to do that because, it's her fault that her sister is in a wheelchair. So is Elphaba a caring sister, or was she just forced to do this her whole life and out of guilt made to do this? Because Elphaba and Nessarose don't have a super sisterly relationship. I don't get the bond between them. I don't see it. I don't feel it. Now, was that intentional, or is that part of the problem too? And maybe in the sequel, we'll get a little bit more definition. Should it have happened now? Definitely. It's leaving me with a lot of questions. Is there going to be some sort of flashback in the sequel to get to know these characters? I hope so, but then...
That would be crazy, because why is there a first movie then?
Yes.
What is the point?
Yeah, is it just a mere introduction to the characters? There's a Glinda. She was the popular kid. She was a bit full of herself. There's a Fiyero that potentially likes two girls. And that there's an Elphaba, and she's human too, and now has turned against the wave. I'm not sure, because Oz is a fraud himself.
I mean, sort of. He's still kind of like the totalitarian president, something along those lines of Oz, right? He still has power.
He's
just not magical.
That's true. He has not magical power. You're completely right. So he's still being fake, though, because he's telling people he does have magical powers.
He's not a wizard.
He's not a wizard. And I like what you said about Dune Part 1, because I had a lot of questions watching that. We got Dune Part 2. I still had more questions watching that, although I felt like some of my questions from Part 1 were answered, but now I have questions about Part 2. But luckily, and hopefully, there's a Part 3. And this might be one of those films that the rest of my questions get answered in Part 2. What was the point of Dune 1 besides the world building? I get that. But I'm not mad at this film. I'm really not. I really enjoyed it. I especially love the introduction. You see the black hat. You see the puddle. Then you see the Wizard of Oz peeps walking down the yellow brick road.
They looked so bad, too.
Did they?
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. I'm not sure if it was just CG or something. It looks so bad. I don't know what that was.
I didn't think they looked bad at all, because I think that introduction kind of gets you hyped for the movie.
Sure, it was a cool introduction.
Because even if you're not familiar with Wicked, you know of Wicked, but you might not be familiar with what it's about, which, I completely wasn't. you know Wizard of Oz. You know those guys. And here they are in your movie. And like I said earlier, I really enjoyed that introduction with Glinda, letting the Munchkins know that she was friends with Elphaba at one point. And I mean, we've said it. We can't say it enough. Ariana Grande killed it. All her facial expressions in that introduction scene just made me know that there was some sadness there, some melancholic thing that happened between these two, and we hadn't even started the film. So the introduction was a great start. And I like some of these, I can't think of another word to call them, but besides chick flick high school films, elements that this movie had, with Glinda kind of being the popular girl, trying to make Elphaba a little bit popular now that she's in with the cool kids. Or I guess now that Glinda got her a wand, really. And we get these little silly things from Glinda's performance that I absolutely love, like her little hair thing, or her changing her name from Galinda to Glinda.
That was like the most meaningful thing in the whole film, I felt like, when she kind of is protesting on behalf of the animals.
Yes, but no, she was just doing that to show her man, hey, I care about these animals too, enough that I'm going to change my name for them in honor of the professor. You know, she wants this guy.
Sure. I mean, it's the most complexity we got.
Yes.
She's acknowledging the situation.
She's like, oh, you care about these animals? I care too. She gave the character so much. How did you feel about the CG? You said that the Wizard of Oz peeps...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were CG and they looked real bad. Whatever was going on there, they looked real bad. The locations and scenery, visuals, all looked pretty good. I'm not sure what was CG and what wasn't. That's a good sign. Everything felt pretty flat. The library rotating room thing was probably the only interesting set.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because of the locomotion of everything.
I like the little miniature Oz prop.
Yeah, totally. That's just another thing that makes me think, oh, that's an easy sell. I think everyone likes dioramas.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone likes saving the animals.
That's how the yellow brick road got chosen. The color. Yeah. Yeah. We love those.
Well, here and there we love those. We don't love the how Solo got the ship and how he got the dice and the gun and how he met Lando.
Well, that's small. The yellow brick road is small enough.
Exactly. We want maybe one or two over the course of the 3-hour movie. Not that's what the movie's about. But also the presence of the 4 guys from Wizard of Oz and Toto. It all feels, when it comes by the end of it, it all feels very manipulative and very low-hanging fruit. And it's like, what was the point of any of this? You know? And I don't know if it is that part 1, part 2 syndrome. I think it's going to be. And I think the raving about this film is it coming to life in like a really cinematic way.
Yeah, for sure.
But I will say the animals looked terrible. Animals often look kind of bad in CG. Obviously, they're very animated.
I was wondering about that because there's certain films where animals look really cool, like Godzilla, like King Kong. And the presence of those animals make me feel something. I'm not sure what it is, but the animals here didn't make me feel anything. And specifically, the flying monkeys. Those had the potential to make me feel that feeling that I get with my monsters in movies that I'm a fan of. And I didn't know if it was me noticing maybe CG problems and thinking maybe I'm losing that magic, or if there was an actual issue with the film.
I think it's more of an issue with the film here because not every movie with, CG porn can be a Planet of the Apes, right?
Ooh, that's a good pull.
Or even a Guardians of the Galaxy where we have this almost kind of dreamlike quality to a lot of the CG where you run this risk of just having this rainbow vomit of, beautiful CG. It's like, okay, everything looks so good and realized and detailed, and then so everything just kind of blurs together and is just nothing. And it might have more to do with the talent behind making the CG, or maybe the combination of using sets and not really fully realizing where the CG is going to interact with on the sets.
Okay.
So I don't know, but the animals definitely were subpar compared to a lot of the visuals. Minus the flatness. The flatness, I think, is a fundamental problem that I don't know what is about. I don't know why they made that decision to make nothing really pop. You know, it's like were they saving it all for the Emerald City? Because the Emerald City didn't pop really either. The only thing that really popped to me was the train itself. And it had this, retro future kind of look, so it's kind of low-hanging fruit again, I think, if you ask me. But when they entered the city, it felt like it was supposed to be this big moment, but it was just boring.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
One thing I did want to bring up was the costume design. Some of the costumes here were absolutely great. I absolutely loved Glinda's pink dress that she had at the beginning in the bubble. The really big puffy one.
The prom dress.
The prom dress. Sure.
I guess that fits the high school kind of theme.
Well, that's years later, right?
Yeah, but just like visually and thematically.
Yeah. Sure, it's great for merch. But this dress is the kind of dress that I imagine live action Disney princess movies would wear. Not the bobo shit they gave Belle, but this dress was actually poofy and flowy and represented a princess or a fairy or a witch, whatever she's supposed to be right here. Elphaba's clothes were also really cool. They fit her personality or whatever little personality we were given. Everything in Glinda's room was pretty cool. That set was probably the best for me. And I also liked those dudes. I don't know what the fuck they're called, but it's those little dudes that had no arms and they were in Oz and they were kind of dancing and they were like balloon filled. That's the best way I can describe them. And then the screen tilted upside down when we were bouncing with them. But we didn't get more of the world where I could have fully seen a lot of that costume design. I guess we did at Oz. I liked everything I saw at Oz as far as costume designs.
All right, man. Well, thank you for watching this movie and talking about it here today.
You're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess?
I'm assuming this film went big or go home. So I'm going with 175.
It says here it was 150 million.
Okay.
And so far it's went on to make $455 million.
Ooh, wee.
So hopefully it's turning a profit at this point.
It should. There's a lot of merch out there. There was a lot of promotional videos and TikToks and interviews and whatnots for this film prior to the film coming out. And Ariana Grande is such a big name, especially with her not being a typical actress. Because I know she had her Nickelodeon moments, but she moved on to the music scene.
Yeah, apparently it's a good idea. I could do with more Ariana Grande if she's got this kind of energy. Because, this is radically different than her as Kat in Victorious, right?
Yeah.
So maybe she's got some acting chops. Well, over on Letterboxd with 689,000 people, they weighed in at a 4.1.
Whoa. You know what? Coming out of the movie theater on such a high with that emotion and with the soundtrack, with the set pieces, that was my original score too, a 4.0. So I get it. I'm not too mad at that score. I think I've lowered it to a 3.5 though. And I'm going to stick to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it drops.
Yeah, this is an easy 1.5.
Oh, did we even watch the same movie?
There's almost nothing I like about this movie, except Ariana Grande. And she really doesn't budge the score one way or the other. If she wasn't here, if it was anyone else, it wouldn't be less than 1.5. And I also will add that the Mean Girls musical we got earlier in the year is better than Wicked Part 1.
Ooh. Yeah, we all know that I put a lot of emotion into my score. I'm big on how a movie made me feel. And I'm telling you, man, that scene with the monkeys getting their wings absolutely broke my heart.
Man, if they would have earned some of that, it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
This movie has the bones of something awesome, no doubt.
And the scene when they're dancing together.
No, I didn't like that one. I was like, this needs to be over.
That started out a bit cringe. But then when they put their hands together, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Why am I feeling like this?
They got you.
They got me.
Did you like the original cast, the original Glenda and Elphaba showing up for their little number?
I didn't notice. That was fine.
I can imagine in another life where you've seen the original play and then seen this movie and that making you cry really hard.
You know, I can see it too, because when we watched the last Jurassic World movie where
oh my god,
where the original cast came back, I was in my feels. I was.
Hey, Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum.
He wasn't very good in Wicked, I will say. He's at a point in his life, I think, that he's just kind of checked out. And if I had to guess, he had no idea what was even happening.
Oh my god.
On the set of Wicked.
No. He was definitely part of the PR circa. He loved answering those questions. Unless they didn't tell him why he was answering questions.
Well, man, thanks again for talking about this movie. And thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Our next episode will be on the even better musical, Cats, from 2019, I believe.
Yes. I'm so excited.
There is one song in Cats I like a lot. Stay tuned to find out.
Only one.
Please look forward to that, though. And remember, we post every Monday and Friday with brand new episodes of the Filmistines on all of our free feeds. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe. Come right in. Come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you, guys. But until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon, at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines signing off.